Welcome into Tori's Take presented by Priority Health. I'm Tori Petry. All right, so yesterday didn't go as planned. This last week on the One Pridecast presented by MGM Grand Detroit, I said I wanted to see a solid game from the Lions against the Colts to show they were on the right track after 2 wins in a row. Those 2 wins came against what were 1-win teams at the time, so I wanted to see them play strong against what was then the 4-2 Colts. Some of Indy's wins had come against struggling teams like the Vikings, Bengals, Jets, so it seemed like these 2 teams were pretty evenly matched ahead of Week 8. Well, they didn't play like they were evenly matched on Sunday. The turnovers in the second half were obvious turning points, but what I want to focus on today is the offense in the first half. The Lions had the ball for less than 8 minutes in that half. That means the Colts had it for 22 minutes. That's some seriously unbalanced time of possession. The Lions offense couldn't get anything going. It meant the defense was on the field for longer than they should have been, and they looked understandably gassed by the end of the first half. When asked about it, Matthew Stafford said the problem was getting into too many third and longs. Well, why do you get into third and longs? Because you didn't run successful plays on first and second down. It seems like the Lions have fallen into a routine on offense, and I'd like to see a little bit more adaptability. See, this really confuses me because this is the same offense that was incredibly explosive in the 8 games Matthew Stafford played last season, and even afterwards, it was a creative offense that adapted to what gave the 2 quarterbacks who stepped in after Stafford the best chance to win. You have many of the same pieces and an arsenal of weapons on offense. We know they're capable of it, yet we're not seeing that same adaptability this year. Maybe it's because they feel like they have tools in the run game with Adrian Peterson and DeAndre Swift joining the room now, and they want to be more committed to balance. I don't know. Granted, the offensive line didn't have their best day against the Colts, and yes, this is a very good Colts defense, and they posed a huge challenge for a line dealing with injuries that hasn't been able to field a consistent lineup, but I wouldn't bring it up if it hadn't been something we've seen outside of just this game. Basically, I want to see this offense get back to doing what it does best: letting Stafford cook a little bit and capitalizing on your stable of talent. Now, this game wasn't as bad as the score indicated. It got out of hand late, and it's certainly not the end of their season. The Lions have winnable games against the Vikings, Washington, and the Panthers coming up, and they are absolutely capable of getting things back on track, and I think that they will. Things could be a little bit more difficult if Kenny Golladay misses any significant amount of time, but either way, they'll have to use these next few games to make some serious improvements ahead of a December gauntlet that involves the Packers, Titans, and Tom Brady's Buccaneers. All right, let's get to your questions. The first question is from Lionbeard40, who asks, at what point do you think the game slipped away from the Lions? 2 points. First, the unnecessary roughness penalty on Danny Shelton, where the Lions sacked Rivers out of field goal range and were able to force the Colts to punt. But they got a penalty instead, and the Colts got a fresh set of downs, which led to a touchdown. Whether you feel like the late thrown flag was unfair, or you feel like the Lions should have just headed to the bench and not gotten chippy with the Colts, it was a turning point. And even if it was an unfair flag, you have to be able to put that behind you, and it felt like the Lions weren't able to. Seemed like things got out of hand in the first half after that. Then, of course, in the second half, the 2 turnovers were pretty impossible to come back from. Next, Would You Kindly says, our run D was pretty impressive yesterday, but our pass D was non-existent. Too many underneath routes. What can we do to prevent that and get both aspects of the defense working and the team starts winning? What's your take on that pass defense? Listen, I really believe part of why the Lions struggled on defense yesterday was because the offense couldn't stay on the field and they were just gassed. It was also Justin Coleman's first game back from IR, and he was targeted 4 times and gave up 4 catches. He might need some time to get back into a groove after missing so many games. It's certainly frustrating for the Lions that Desmond Trufant, who they brought in to presumably be CB1 over the offseason, has missed most of this season so far. Their young cornerbacks aren't playing poorly. It's just a matter of allowing them room to develop. Although I do think Amani Oruwariye has actually been really good this season. And of course, a good pass rush helps the secondary out, so hopefully getting Everson Griffin in there after that trade helps them out in that aspect. And finally, we'll take you to our extra point. On the pregame show every game day, we pick fantasy starts at key positions, and when we picked our quarterbacks yesterday, I said I would go Patrick Mahomes at the Jets, but that would have been too easy because it was just going to be a bloodbath. And sure enough, it was. Mahomes threw for 416 yards and 5 touchdowns en route to a 35-9 win over the Jets, tweeting a little wave and tagging ESPN Fantasy after the game. And who could forget the piggyback ride for Tyreek Hill? As if the video of this wasn't enough on its own, the checkdown on Twitter added captions that labeled Mahomes as Me on November 1st and Hill as Mariah Carey Christmas. Come on, if you're a regular viewer of Tori's Take, you know that I am so into this. There were snow flurries in Michigan yesterday, right? So it's not too soon. Listen, this year has sucked, so you're allowed to do whatever makes you happy when it comes to Christmas music this year. That's my most important take today. Thanks so much for tuning in to Tori's Take presented by Priority Health from Xfinity Studio. I'm Tori Petry.